really happy that you are here with me. So thank you for your time.
Oh
And
yeah, and it looks
especially
like you
thank
must have gotten your Uller. Okay.
Yeah, it's amazing. To be honest, on the first night, because I'm using Aura Ring, on the first night I got 30 minutes more deep sleep than normally, and basically it's going up all the time. So I'm gonna take the screenshot. So I'm gonna share it with your company.
Oh yeah, that would be great.
If you want to use it, you can obviously do it without any problems. So yeah, I'm really amazed. And the other thing is, I really like the design.
Oh, good.
I was so upset that I need to put it under my bed. So my question actually is it important where you are putting your device?
You can put it anywhere. One of the reasons we say under the bed is because anytime you have electricity, you do get some EMFs. We've tried to minimize that, and obviously there's none in the pad at all. But either, it's really on an EMF like factor to either put it under your bed so that it doesn't, go through, or put it on the far side of your nightstand.
I may think about putting my router as well down there in that case. Yeah, the EMF field, it's horrible. And I've heard in the US they've released that new one.
Yeah, the 5G. It's to me, I really think we're going to have to come to terms with that. It's hard because, as a physicist, everyone is like, well, if you can't see it, is it really a problem? And I think the problem about EMFs is because people don't see them until they get really sick. And then they're like, oh,
but usually when they are getting really sick, they're like, oh, it must be a diet, or oh, probably I'm not exercising enough. So there's so many causes.
Used to that.
And if you cannot see it, you will not believe it, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that is really hard problem.
I think it's a really hard thing to overcome. Even food, people understand, like, I need to change my diet, or I need to do that. And, it's stuff they can see, and you can use an EMF field and tester, and you can do that. But, for most people, it just doesn't sink in that you're surrounded by it all the time, and it goes through your cells and it affects your body. And the stronger it is, and the different frequencies are definitely not what your bodies are. We didn't evolve with that, so we haven't adapted to it at all yet.
Because what's really interesting for me, because we've spent so much time on developing our technology, and right now we are just doing a big circle and coming back to the caveman routines, isn't it? So the science is like turning around everything upside down. So we are just coming back to the old times.
Spectacular.
So okay, so how did you start your story with the science, and why did you choose sleep as a point of an interest?
So it's actually kind of an interesting story. Todd and I think you met Todd as well, is my business partner and husband. So we have brought other products to market. So his uncle invented the waterbed way back, and we've brought other products. We do product design and consulting, and this product was originally more about comfort. It was about bringing a thermometer, because two different people in the bed are likely to have two different temperatures. He always slept really hot, and I always wanted to have extra covers. And it's always
so it was like a fight.
Challenge. Oh. Yeah, so I was fighting over that. So it was really less about the sleep and more about the comfort when we designed the product. And then amazingly, we started getting just the great results. I think you had mentioned as well about your the deep sleep. And to me, as a scientist, my background is in physics, and definitely in all about energy physics. And I was like, there's something going on here. There's something different that happens in bed with this temperature. And so that's where really my research sort of did that deep dive of how does temperature interact with our body? I spend a lot of time doing human thermal modeling. So what happens under the covers, the effects of what kind of mattress, what kind of blanket you have, what's the ambient temperature effect, metabolism, BMI, gender, age, all of those are all variables in this sort of equation. Nationality, yeah.
I'm Polish, we don't sleep. No, I'm joking.
all of those factors, genotype, phenotype, I mean, the list of things that can affect that are huge, and absolutely Polish genetics, all of those things. Chronotype is driven by, the PER gene, and like whether you're a morning person or a night person. So, there is definitely all of those elements in sleep. And so to try to understand how we can make sleep work better, and we're usually sleeping if we're doing it well. So how do we optimize that? If we're doing a diet, we obviously know what's going in our body and we understand that metric. But when we're asleep, how do we fix something if ideally we're sleeping? So temperature has been a really fun way to unconsciously, when the person is sleeping, still be able to manipulate or optimize their sleep.
Because you've mentioned, I think first time when we've met on the Health Optimization Summit, you've mentioned that NASA is using that technology as well. Is it basically your technology that they are using?
Yeah, so it's actually it's not NASA as much as our military.
Okay.
So we have we actually do different studies with veterans for PTSD and mental health issues, but then we also do what one of the companies we work with is fatigue science, and they really look at how to measure how tired someone is. So if you can imagine flying one of those billion-dollar airplanes, they obviously don't want someone to be too tired to fly, and they need to have a sense on how to measure their quality of work, because it's a big deal if they crash it. So we work with them to basically create sleep density and to shrink how long you need to sleep to get that same quality of sleep. So that's
really important, because I have found a quote on your website. It's not about how long you sleep every night, it's about the quality of that sleep. So many people don't understand that kind of a quote. So could you just shed some light on this?
Yeah, so I think that there's a lot of information out there that says you need to sleep 8 hours. There's also information though, and it goes back to your conversation about the hunters and gatherers and paleo and caveman. So Jerry Siegel out of UCLA in the US did a study on hunters and gatherers where he basically put trackers on them for over a year, and they actually followed the Earth's temperature rhythm. Their circadian rhythm matched that, and found that temperature was a very significant driver. They also didn't sleep 8 hours. They only slept, between 5.9 and 6.3 on average hours, and still got great sleep. And they didn't have a lot of the same sleep-related health issues that we have. So, we have this sense we need to be there 8 hours. I think it comes from a subjective view of, if I'm not sleeping well, I need to sleep longer, but it's not really about spending more time doing something. Exercising more isn't going to necessarily make you more fit. It'd be making sure the exercises fit your body and fit your goals, versus, just exercising all day. That, those technically that could work, but it's not going to be the most efficient or the best way probably to do that. And so if you can sleep and use, in our case, temperature, but to get better deep sleep is most associated with that feeling of being rested and healing and feeling really good the next day. So if we can sort of aim for those 2 hours of deep sleep every night and get those, and we can get them without sleeping 8 hours, I think that itself is the evidence that says, I have really great sleep. I feel I get all this stages, I just don't need it in 8 hours.
So because we went a little bit to the front, so because the very crucial question down here is, what is sleep and why is it so essential for us?
I don't know that anyone has like the optimal answer to that. The answer is, though, that all animals sleep. It's part of how we've evolved to manage our memories. So we don't tend to process our memories during the day. All of that happens at night. We don't tend to heal as well during the day. Most of that is left to heal at night. It's a chance for our bodies, just like you would sort of recycle or go through. So you're meant to drop your stress. You're meant to heal. You're meant to sort your memories, sort your emotions, sort the day. I think, again, back to that paleo lifestyle, if you ran into a lion and during the day, then this was the chance for your brain to figure out, do I need to remember that? Is it important? And that's how it becomes part of your memory.
And usually it's erasing maths. When you are learning maths, it's just erasing it every night. It's so hard to learn maths.
It is really hard to learn math. Sleep can help with memorization significantly. There's a lot of good studies on that. But yeah, as students, we don't do that. We want to stay up late and study, and it's actually not good for memory to do that. Our brains do. They want to fall asleep when our circadian rhythm or chronotype says we should fall asleep, and we want to have really great sleep during that time.
So what are the most common sleep deprivation causes, and which one of them do you find the most dangerous?
Most dangerous would probably be when people have sleep apnea. A lot of that's attached to being heavy or age. It's a lot of times it's a weight issue, not always, but the sleep apnea stuff, if you're not breathing well, that would be the most dangerous, because obviously that's a big factor. But I think that the one of the most common ones is temperature, and I know I'm obviously biased on that, but our mattresses with the foam and everything we've put into them actually absorb our heat and reflect it back. We keep our houses at a constant temperature. So in the last 50 years, we've gone from all natural bed materials and basically still sleeping outside. We may have had a fire or a fireplace, but we didn't have central heat or central air conditioning. We had a variation in our climates. So we've taken all those out for comfort. And I do feel like one of the things you learn in biohacking is that comfort is good, but change is what makes us better. And our bodies look for those pivots of change in order to be at our best self. If you stay the same, if you're always status quo, you're not likely to be more healthy. You may be comfortable, but you may not be healthy. And I think that temperature is one of the things we've done that sabotaged our sleep. A surprising number of people that wake up in the middle of the night, even if it's just to use the bathroom or washroom or restroom, whatever you want to talk about it, that is most of the time it's because they're not the right temperature. So deep sleep, your body actually emits a hormone that prevents you from needing to use it's an antidiuretic. So you shouldn't wake up to use the restroom if you're in deep sleep. So when you're waking up and you need to get up and you say, I just have to use the restroom, it very likely is temperature. The other one is we all, as a culture, European, American, all of us like to drink. We like to drink alcohol, and alcohol is terrible for our sleep. So, keeping that alcohol outside of that 3 hours before bed window makes a really big difference. But culturally, again, not having a glass of wine with dinner can be hard. So it's not.
For me, it's an achievement, because within 2 weeks, it's going to be 2 years when I'm not drinking at all. Not even a single sip.
Congratulations. That's huge.
The only Polish guy in the world, I think.
I think so. It is the pressure, the social pressure to drink and not even overdrink, but just to drink and have that be part of the system is just so much there. And I think that alcohol is, I still do have an occasional drink, but it is just, I know I see it in my aura data. I see it in my sleep. It's affecting,
I think the hardest part of that process when I've stopped drinking wasn't actually the process of stop drinking. It was just the process of convince my friends that I'm not drinking. So if it comes to the social pressure, that's a big factor on that one. If someone doesn't have like a really, really tough mind, it must be really hard to quit drinking.
And I
Um,
think going to sleep at the right time is also part of that social pressure, because you're pushed to go out
yeah.
and to be social in the evening after work, and that's often affects that sleep window, especially if you're a morning person. So
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of social pressures that sabotage our sleep.
Yeah, that's true. So if it comes to the sleep, what's the difference between deep and REM phase of the sleep?
So there's deep sleep is your brain waves actually slow down. So your brain is actually in a slower frequency of brain waves. Your resting heart rate during deep sleep is usually at its lowest, and that should be right in the middle of the night when your core
Mhm.
body temperature is the lowest. Deep sleep likes it cooler. So if you are using something like the Ooler, deep sleep usually happens in the first half of the night, and it definitely wants it to be cooler.
Mhm.
So whatever your comfort level is, different people, cooler means different things. Our body temperature is obviously 37 degrees Celsius. So cooler is less than that. For some people,
Mhm.
it's as cold as they can get it. And some people, it's just a little bit cooler than that. And then REM sleep usually happens in the second half of the night. And it tends to like it warmer. So some people will use the Ooler, and their first night, they'll say, I woke up cold in the morning.
Mhm.
And it's usually sometime after our bodies reach that sort of middle of the valley and is trying to warm back up, and it's just a little bit too cold. It was the great sleep for deep sleep, not the great sleep for REM sleep,
Mhm.
where, just like the earth is warming up as the sun's coming up to set,
Yeah.
your body wants to do that same thing. So uh, picture that being a little bit warmer. Some people, it's all the way up to that
So you
body
would rather
temperature.
recommend to set the temperature on the one of the lowest at the beginning of the night and then just gradually increase it towards the morning.
Yeah, so I really like to think about sleep as in like three buckets or three categories.
Mhm.
And the first bucket is when you go to sleep. For me, I still like to climb into a warm bed, especially
Mhm.
in the wintertime. It's probably mental, but I want to snuggle in and feel like the
Mhm.
bed's warm, but that's not great for deep sleep. So I have that first part is a little bit warmer, but then I have it set so that within 30 minutes of falling asleep, it drops down cooler.
Mhm.
And so, that's sort of the second bucket is that cooler for deep sleep. And then that third chunk is that REM sleep, which should be a little bit warmer again, to warm you
Mm,
back up.
is there any actually function for the light sleep?
There's interesting architecture in there. There's definitely K complexes, spindles. There's other sort of jumps in brain activity. And I don't know that they have totally nailed down why that all happens. I like to think of it as light sleep is the ribbon of that goes through. So,
Mhm.
it's the constant part that you'll go below or you'll go above, but it's this constant in between. And you have to have in between to go
Yeah.
between deep and REM. So I think it has value. You definitely dream during that time. Those things have been understood. I think most of the research now is highly focused on that deep sleep, because
Mhm.
they're attaching lack of deep sleep to Alzheimer's and dementia and cognitive loss as we age. It definitely seems to have part of that longevity equation in it. And I think part of it is they just haven't studied it that much.
Mhm.
We'll probably come out with some other reason
So
why
it's
it's
still
there.
like an open question
It's
that
a
they don't know much about it.
No, and it's very hard because it's an in between state. It's very hard to study that
Mhm.
particular one. When you're in deep sleep, your brain waves are slower. It's very clear. Those other ones are obviously, but you're most of the time you're moving. It's like studying a pivot point in an exercise.
Mhm.
It's what happens between, and it's important when you're exercising to rest for those 30 minutes and still breathe and still do all those things. But we
Mhm.
focus on what happens on those other
On the
chunks.
intensive parts, yeah. So what is thermal neutrality, and is it different for everyone?
I'm sorry, I apologize, your question, I think, cut out in the first part. Would you repeat it
Okay,
again?
so what is thermal neutrality, and is it different for everyone?
No, thermal neutrality is really the same. All it means is that you're in an environment that isn't affecting your core body. So obviously, if you weren't thermal neutral and you were hot, that's when our body starts to sweat. It has to start working to cool down. It's got to work on achieving, it's working on that side. The other side of it is if it gets too cold, then it's going to work on, it gets cold enough, it'll start shivering. It'll start working on conserving energy in the core. So if you're too cold, you're also doing that. The way I use thermal neutrality is to think about the fact that our beds right now are not a thermal neutral environment. Those memory foam mattresses feel really good. Any of those foams, they tend to heat us up. So they're actually not, we think of our bed as this neutral, safe environment, but it's actually, it adds heat into the equation. And we're already an engine. So just like your car, you wouldn't drive your car without a radiator or some cooling mechanism for your engine to keep it from overheating. We need to manage the temperature in our bodies that way in order to keep it thermally neutral.
Okay, so I found one really interesting information. Maybe it's going to be like for more advanced users. But what are the VLPO neurons and how do they regulate our sleep timing?
So those are really fascinating. So it goes back to Clifford Sapir out of Harvard was the first person to coin it, and he called it the sleep switch. So those neurons, the VLPO neurons, are excited by temperature. When I say excited, that means that they are in a state where they're going to force the release of melatonin. So one of the really fun parts of that is we know, I think everyone assumes light does that, but I don't think everyone realizes that a change in temperature can trigger that release of melatonin as well. The fun part of where those neurons are located is it's in your hypothalamus, which evolutionary wise is the old part of your brain. There's no conscious decision on whether you breathe or not. This is where all that's located. Your heart beats, you breathe. This temperature sleep switch is in that same place where it's an automatic, you can't think about it kind of place in your brain. So that's where that sleep switch is located. So we need to really think about that at night. So 50 years ago, if we were sitting around the fire telling stories, or even outside, that temperature would have started to drop in the evening. And so that's what that sleep switch is looking for. As your sleep drive increases and it's that optimal time for your circadian rhythm, you really want to focus on changing that temperature. For me, it's climbing into that nice warm bed, and that's where some people just putting on socks or warming up. For some people, it's cooling down. Some people, it may be taking a shower or maybe taking a walk at night so that it's a different temperature than your house. But, think about that in your bedtime routine, that there is this sleep switch. It relates very well. There is an equivalent one for light that works similarly, and that's where those dimming of the lights or not having blue light right before you go to bed. Our bodies are looking for that similar trigger. I think, most people can use one or the other, but, they're both there, and recognizing both is only going to help you sleep better.
That's great. So basically everyone gonna have a different trigger in that case.
Yeah, I think about it, we sort of talked about genetics, and depending on who you are and what your capability is, I think we look at food tolerances very much that way of we're not all the same. Some people may have a gluten intolerance, and the very same person, looking like they may look the same, but they don't have that same intolerance. They may have a different intolerance. How our brains work as far as sleep is individualized. I like to describe it as my grandmother taught me how to bake bread, and the ingredients for her bread are exactly the same general ingredients that your grandmother probably used to make bread, but the way in which she did it, the order and how much and how long you bake it and how long you knead that dough is a little bit different for each of us. And we each have to figure out our own recipe, and that is definitely the complex part. It's why biohacking exists, is to understand what works for me may not work exactly for you, but to understand what all tips are out there and then incorporate the ones that work for you into your routine.
So how can chili products improve our sleep? Because I have found the list on benefits of your products, and it goes on and on and on and on. So I would like to hear what you have to say about this. So how it can improve our sleep.
Well, the first one goes back to that sort of sleep quality number, temperature, managing that and keeping that thermal neutrality. Especially in Europe, there's no air conditioning in the summer, and really able to keep it cool. But even when we were in Finland, it may be wintertime out, but you can't open your window necessarily to cool, bring that inside. You'd freeze your whole house.
Yeah.
So you still, in your bed when you're sleeping, managing that temperature is really what it does a good job at. All the benefits of great sleep help multiple conditions. We all need sleep. So whatever you're struggling with, cancer, we have MS, fibromyalgia, all those people, they all have different reasons why they need sleep, and they all have a little different recipe, as we've just mentioned. But getting good quality sleep fixes a lot. It may not cure cancer, but it's going to make you way better equipped because you'll be more mentally able to handle whatever you're dealing with. It gives you better willpower. So really the key to Chili Pad is just a better sleep. And it's easy because there isn't anything you have to do with it.
One of the things, if it comes to the improvement, and was like really wow for me, was that chili products can trigger our brain to fall asleep 98% faster. 98.
That really boils down to just like I talked about, the difference of that sleep switch of using temperature to trigger it. Absolutely, you can do it without chili products. You can, have that hot shower and you can, work on triggering it. But if you utilize that sleep switch that your body comes with, it makes it a lot easier to fall asleep. That huge number.
And if it comes to the temperature, is there like one most effective temperature for improving sleep quality? Or is it going to be different for everyone?
I get that question a lot, and that's where I came up with that idea of those sort of 3 buckets of sleep temperature to think about. And I usually suggest people to think about what temperature do they like to fall asleep at. Like for me, like I said, it was that warm. My husband, he wants it as cold as possible. So think about that as far as where you would normally set a thermostat, if you could set it at anything. And then, your middle of the night is cooler. You want to be cooler than wherever you start at. So obviously if you started at 37, then cooler for you may only be like a 28. But if you start all the way down at the bottom, then, you want to try to be a little bit cooler, or at least keep it as cool as you started. But almost everybody will appreciate a little bit warmer. So wherever your coolest part is, you want to be warmer from that. But it is a ranging scale where you need to sort of think about where you start from, and adjust accordingly from there.
And are you currently working on any software or hardware upgrades of your product?
Yeah, so honestly, we're really focused on a software application of sort of honestly everything I've just talked about, doing a sleep coaching type app that kind of walks you through how to do that, with access to, in a very biohacker kind of way, of what interactions may help you at different times, because there is a timeliness. But some people will have heard that they need to take magnesium, but they may take it in the morning and they may not take it at night, which is it's much better at night.
True.
Just not complex coaching, but just, walking us through when is that optimal time, basing it on a person's chronotype. So it'd be personalized for that individual based on their chronotype start. So, when you really should sleep.
Have you been thinking about actually connecting it to, let's say, Oura Ring? So
yes. Yeah. We have a great relationship with Oura, a fabulous company. And so the information will hopefully come in with that. So we have a great relationship on the APIs. Honestly, we have a philosophy at Chili in general that everybody likes things differently. Sleep is very personalized. So for some people, I
That's
love
why
the
it
Oura
is
ring
so
myself,
hard to hack,
but
actually, because everyone is different.
but some people don't like the ring, so we will also get along with whatever other sensors or whatever other measurements. We're planning to bring in Apple Health data or Google Health data. Wherever you get your information from, that wins. We're all different. We all like our information a little bit differently. So
That's
the
true.
plan with any of our hardware and software is as much as possible to get along with everybody, because it doesn't help anybody if we have a big ego and don't
that's true.
don't share.
There's too many companies of this kind already, so we don't need another ones.
No. In general, if the best idea in the room should always win.
Yeah, that's true. So what are the other technologies and actions we can take to improve our sleep?
Well, we kind of talked about EMFs at the beginning, and I do feel like that's definitely part of my passion, is to turn off your Wi-Fi at night and as best you can really try to give your body a break. Sleep is a really special time for healing, so keeping EMFs out. I also talked about stress. And all of us have stressful lives. We all have moments that we can't, but taking that time, it's really easy to talk yourself out of not needing meditation, of not needing journaling or gratitude or whatever that looks like for you. But whatever you do to take that stress out is super important, and you really have to give it that time. So I think between stress and EMFs, keeping those out of your night, keeping your sleep sacred and giving it the time that it needs. You don't necessarily need lots of time, but you do need the time that it needs and the right time, and respecting it.
So you would rather recommend developing like special habit routine every night, let's say meditation, and just trying to keep the stress away before going to bed?
Yes. I am. If you haven't tried yoga and nidra, I really highly recommend it. It's a great practice, and it's really simple meditation. I think everybody can benefit from just breath work and a little bit of that. But sleep is very habit-based. We think about it when we have children. If we get them on the same routine, they fall asleep way better if they do the same thing every night. And as grown-ups, we like to think we're different than our kids, but we really do want this. We want a routine as much as possible. Our body wants to do the same thing every day and to know what's coming and to have that.
The brain consider it safe then, because it knows what's exactly going to happen. If the brain doesn't know what's going to happen, it's like, oh, there's something wrong in there.
So and it adds stress, and it conflicts with everything you want to do with sleep. So if you can create a routine, I recommend to people, if drinking a tea at night, a sleepy time tea is part of it, lay that out before you go to bed, because by the time you're tired. And there's a lot of studies now. There was a CDC study in the US that compared sleep deprivation to drinking alcohol. And after 17 hours of being awake, it is the equivalent of 2 drinks. So if you're not going to make good choices,
you can save money then.
Yes, you can that way. It's not nearly as much fun, I don't think, unfortunately. But it makes us not always make the good choices at bedtime. So setting that routine up so it happens every night, and doing as much as you can before you're in that bedtime window, so that it's easy to do that routine, is really important.
Okay, so right now I'm gonna ask you a couple of like more private questions.
Okay.
They are kind of strange, some of them, but they're really important at the same time, because I think the viewers will learn something new. So if you had a chance to call the 10-year younger you and talk for 30 seconds, what advice would you give to your past self?
Ooh, that one's really good. I alluded that I just finished writing a book, and that person, this is sort of a little bit difficult, but we lost our youngest son about 10 years ago, 11 years ago, actually. So that person I didn't understand the effect of not sleeping and grief and depression, and sleep is so tied to mental health
Mm-hmm.
that I would love to sit down with that person and give them that routine and make sure that I knew now how important that sleep routine is and how powerful that sleep is for healing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't then, and I didn't sleep very well, and it took me probably, it'll always take, that kind of thing always takes time to heal, but it was definitely harder by not sleeping.
Mm-hmm. So what's the best advice you have ever received?
Ooh, I am a junkie for getting new tips and advice. So I have a favorite book that's a somewhat fiction. It's a fictional account of I think a relatively true story. Shantaram is the name of the book, and in the first few lines of the book, he describes himself chained to the floor and being tortured, which sounds terrible. But what he says in that moment is really important, because he felt like in that moment, despite the fact that humanly you would say he had nothing, there's nothing left if you're naked and being tortured and chained, but he felt like he had the freedom to forgive, he had the
Mm-hmm.
freedom to be himself, to still, no matter what someone's taken away from you, you still have the freedom to be you. And we let all of the societal social pressures say we can't choose to be who we are going to be. We can't choose but we can choose our thoughts. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter what happens on the outside. We get to choose our thoughts. We get to choose the direction we take, who we forgive, whether we smile or not.
Mm-hmm.
We get to choose those. So I always feel like that is, to me, the best advice, because if everything else was taken away from you, which you still have the choice to think and be you, and to own
I
that.
think because it's really connected to the one book, one of my favorite ones. I think you would love it. It's a book of Viktor Frankl, if you ever heard about him.
No, I will definitely write it down.
So his name is Viktor Frankl, and book was called, I don't remember the title in English because I was reading it actually
Yeah.
in Polish, but it's going to be something like The Man in the Pursuit of Meaning of Life, something
Oh,
similar.
okay. Sure, Amazon will have it. I'll check it
Yeah,
out.
and what it was, he was a psychologist and a psychiatrist, and he was living during the World War II, but unfortunately he was a Jew. So he ended up in a different concentration camps, and he was just looking at the reality, and he was thinking about the meaning behind all of this, and he has actually found it. So the book is really amazing, and there's a lot of thoughts really similar to the ones you just shared with me right now. So I'm pretty sure you're gonna love it.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, I do. My grandmother went through some tough stuff during that war, and I think that there's a sense, I think about her a lot, of we in our day today don't have any sense on what those people had to go through,
Yeah,
and it's really easy for us to think that having a bad day is terrible, but not compared to what other humans have lived through way worse. And
yeah, that's true.
we have the choice to be what we want to be in that scenario.
Mhm. And when you think of the word success, what first two people come into your mind, and why them?
So it's very simple, and it probably comes from obviously the mom in me, but success for me, and I guess it's more, I have 4 boys now
Mhm.
still. And
Oh
so,
my God.
yes. So for me, the very
A lot
best
of
thing
broken
that it's,
things at home, probably.
yes, it's a little crazy. So when all of them are home, because some of them are now in school away, but when all of them are home and we're all sitting together, sometimes it's playing a game, sometimes it's watching TV or having a meal, but when we're all together, that feels like success. And
Mhm.
they're all happy, and as as a person, that is the ultimate success. You know, there's metrics with money and all of that kind of thing, but nothing else makes me happier than that moment. So
that's a great answer. That one is a good one. I like that question. If you could wake up with a new skill tomorrow, what would it be and why?
So this is very quirky, but I've always like dreamed of I love the word healer. I love people that are, you know, just naturally healers. I feel like my mission in sleep is related to that. But I love superheroes, probably because I have 4 boys. Superheroes.
You don't have any other choice.
Are always there. So we get that question a lot. Well, what would your superpower be? And my superpower would definitely be healing. I love that interaction of being able to take someone from not being well to well.
Yeah, at some point of my life, I actually went through that because I'm a pranic healer. So I was playing a lot with the energy. Maybe that's something you would be interested in. It's really easy. It's really easy to apply, really easy to study, and you're gonna see amazing results. One of the tests I've done, I had 2 plant roses. I bought two plant roses, exactly the same. I've placed them in the same place. I was watering them exactly same time. So the circumstances around them, environment was exactly the same. But I was using prana only on one of them. Mm-hmm. So I was using the pranic healing only on one of them. And the one which I didn't heal died after 2 weeks. And the other one is still with my parents. And it was ages ago.
That is amazing.
Really, really interesting. But, you know, science cannot explain it yet. Maybe it's like, I don't know, influence of a consciousness. God knows.
Yeah, plants are really interesting. There's been a couple studies where they've actually realized that trees in a forest, although they all are separate, will actually during the day they'll suck up the water and do the nutrients, but at night they'll actually channel that water and the nutrients towards a tree that is suffering or struggling. Okay. And so I feel like we discount plants a lot, and we assume that they're obviously alive, but not sentient beings that way. And
you better not say that, because some vegans may hear that.
Yeah, then they'll be in trouble. Then I don't know where they'll go. But you know, I do feel like the sharing of energy is really important.
There is another one. So, what biohacking technology and techniques do you use?
Ooh, a fairly long list. You know, probably outside of Chile, Aura is the next one. I'm definitely addicted to seeing all of those metrics. You know, I think it comes and goes a little bit with different technologies and supplements beyond that. I'm really focused on sleep. So most of those, I will definitely try new things. I love cryotherapy. I do feel like the physicist in me, and this is a complex topic of entropy, but if I was to measure the age of the universe in a physics term, it would be by entropy, and that is a combination of heat and time. And time is not a good variable by itself in order to measure longevity, but that's the timeline we use as humans. But actually a better measurement of how old we are is how much heat is inside us and in our equation, and our bodies fight that. And when we lose that, we run a fever.
That's really interesting. Actually, a couple of days ago, I was reading about the epiphany. That it's always rising in the universe, and there is a reason behind it. That's also connected.
Yeah, it is very connected. So yeah, I like to play around with anything that has thermodynamics in it. So definitely like the Wim Hof method and cooling and cryotherapy and ice baths versus saunas and, you know, temperature cycling. That's probably, if I geek out on biohacking, it's definitely along those lines.
Okay, so that was actually the last question. So thank you for being here with me.